It was kind of like, hey, Kashika's friend. I just felt like, why did they call her name and then, acted like they didn't? And then I asked them, I was like, is there something you want to talk to her about? Laxative. She goes like, I'm not talking to you. And all the people around us had started to stare at us. So yeah, I like to bully people when I'm bored out of my mind because I feel like that's the most fun thing you can do. No, I'm kidding, please. I'm not a bully. I haven't bullied anyone in my entire life ever, and I don't intend to either. The title, thumbnail, everything was a clickbait. What? I'm a channel with barely 11 subscribers. Can you blame me for being desperate? I'll do whatever I can to grasp your attention. But having said that, I promise this video is going to be worth it. So please make sure that you don't leave and skip. So yeah, now let's roll. I am going to be telling you guys about my interaction with some nasty bullies. However, it's actually really my friend's bully story, so I'm not going to be diving deep into it because it's not my story to tell. But what I will be sharing today, just my interaction with the bullies when I met them for the first time. So for the convenience of this video, we are going to be naming them. There were 3 of them. The queen bully, the nastiest of them, we're going to name her Laxative because you know what? I figured that if I were to creatively butcher her name, it would sound a lot like Laxative. And the other 2 minions, we're going to be naming them Sidekick 1 and Sidekick 2. And together, this group of bullies will be called the bitches. And see, if you know me, you know that I love women platonically. I'm a feminist and I die for sisterhood, but that doesn't make me oblivious to some women who are just rotten to the core. So basically, this friend of mine and I, we became friends in college, and these are her bullies from school. So I hadn't ever met any of them. I didn't know any of them. She had just told me about her experiences. So we were all living in the same metropolitan city, that is me, my friend and her bullies, for educational purposes. So one evening after dinner, my friend and I, we decided to go out for some stroll, to get a breather or whatever. So you're walking, having a nice time, when there comes this park and we were rounding it. So at the corner of it, there were sitting 3 girls, and yeah, you guessed it right, the muse, the villainous stars of this video. So yeah, we were rounding it when Sidekick 1, she sees us and she calls my friend's name. And as soon as she says her name, she turned her head to the other 2 minions. It was kind of like, hey, Kashika's friend. And like she starts laughing. My friend was into her phone, so at first I thought she did not hear them. And this entire thing was just so weird and unsettling, and I was like, wait, I didn't know them. I had no idea they were the bitches. I just felt like, why did they call her name and then, acted like they didn't? Like, what the heck is going on? So I stopped and then I asked them, I was like, is there something you want to talk to her about? And I guess this caught them off guard because they acted so defensive. Like as soon as I finished getting this question out of my mouth, Laxative, she goes like, I'm not talking to you. And guys, I'm not making this tone and this volume up. No, she literally, her voice was so gruff when she was talking to me. It's like I'm a pest who's there bothering her or whatever. And I was like, I did hear you calling out her name. And then she said, can you please go? And then I said, why are you being so rude to me? I'm talking to you so politely. And then she said, I'm talking to you politely as well. Guys, that's when I freaking lost it. I was like, have you heard yourself? Oh my gosh, I just finished saying this and all 3 of them, they erupt at me. They freaking raised their volume and they started screaming at me. They were literally verbally assaulting me, and all the people around us had started to stare at us. These girls are so rotten and pathetic. They don't have the slightest idea of how to act decently in a public. Everybody was looking at us and I was so shocked because never before had I ever seen such people except on Wattpad. And then I say, oh my gosh, I don't want the other people to be looking at me. And then Sidekick 1 again says, so yeah, please go. I leave and that's when my friend tells me it was them. I was like, who? She said, the bitches. And I was like, oh, they are the bitches. And oh my gosh. And see, I always believed whatever my friend said to me about them, but experiencing their wrath firsthand, I couldn't even imagine how my friend went through everything she went through with them. Like, that's when I realized some people can be just so bad, like downright bad. And this doesn't end here. Oh my gosh, people, believe me when I say the night was so long. Or the night is still young. Like, oh, we again encountered them the same night. I may just spare you off the details, but one detail I will share. So you know what, like, Psychic One and I, we had a moment. Oh my gosh, this sounds so wrong. No, not a moment, but like we had an argument. So at this point of time, the other two minions were not there. Psychic One was there with my friend. At first she was talking, then she again starts verbally assaulting her. So obviously I had to interfere. I interfere, and then she says to me, "Stop interfering, you bitch," and blah blah blah. This happens. So when the other two minions come, Psychic One goes to them, and then she points at me while telling Laxative, "And you know what? This bitch was interfering so much." I smile. I turn to her and say, "That's one of the things I'm great at." And oh my gosh, I'm so proud of myself for coming up with this, okay? To this day, this retort, this remark, it has been my life's greatest achievement. Which is kind of sad. Now comes like the most, like, you know, the goosebumps giving part. My friend, she finally asks Laxative the $1 million question. She said, "We don't like each other. We had a fallout months ago. Why can't we just go on with our lives? Like, why did you have to accost me and create the scene? We could have just pretended we didn't know each other and go with our work." And that's when Laxative said the truly psychopathic thing. She said, "I do it because it's fun. It's fun for me to bully you." And oh my gosh, people, if you had heard it firsthand, you would be spooked. I was so shocked, and I felt like, how devious can a person be? Okay, and now it's time for the sponsor of this video, and the sponsor being me. Ha, the worst way in the history of promoting yourself. But guys, please, I beg you to watch my videos, okay? I spend lots of hours on them, and I assure you, I promise you, they're going to be worth your time. They're educational as well as entertaining, so please watch them. And while I'm talking about my YouTube channel, can you please also go and follow me on Instagram? I know this account, it freaking seems like a dead-ass account. It's giving graveyard, but I promise I intend to get active over there, so please follow me. I'm not even trying to hide how desperate I am, because I am desperate. Social media, it's already a very overly saturated platform. If I really want to make something out of myself, I guess I have to beg. So talking about the story, this story brings me to the main point of this video. Not all wrongs must be forgiven. Some bullies, they just don't deserve your empathy, and it's okay if you choose not to forgive them. Forgiveness isn't a warm blanket that brings peace from everyone. There, I said it. A piece from Maisha Cherry's book, The Failures of Forgiveness. She says something like, you know, if forgiveness is a moral practice that's praiseworthy, then withholding the said forgiveness from perpetrators who don't deserve it, who haven't earned it, or who don't warrant it yet, is a praiseworthy act in its own right. I mean, forgiveness has to be judicious. You cannot just go on giving unconditional forgiveness to everyone. The wrongdoers, they're not entitled to your forgiveness. I feel like as a society, we always wrongfully place the focus of discussion on a bully's psyche whenever a crime or injury occurs. Why they did what they did, they're coming from a place of hurt, and what should be their resolution. And I'm not saying that we should not talk about these factors, but I surely think they don't warrant more importance than the victim's pain that this very bully caused them. Why do Laxative's life circumstances demand more importance than the very pain and humiliation she caused my friend? Why should my friend be expected to forgive Laxative when it should be her own choice if she wants to forgive her or not? And if all wrongs are expected to be forgiven, then what's the consequence? And here comes the flaw, the grave flaw of this culture of forgiveness. And when I talk about consequences, mind you, I'm not just talking about legal consequences. I'm also talking about moral consequences. If a wrongdoer always knows that they're going to be forgiven at the end of the day, what's stopping them from committing or repeating the same crime in the future? isn't this just encouraging their sociopathic behavior? Praising people who choose to forgive as being so noble and generous, and scrutinizing people who choose not to forgive as they're still holding on to their grudges should be stopped. I think we all tend to forget that as people viewing the entire scene from a third person perspective, it's easier for us to empathize with and understand the bully, but we cannot expect the same level of calmness from the victim because the victim has suffered because of them. We have not. And this is why I feel like it's not our place to tell a victim what they ought or ought not to do, and also judge their choice. Forgiveness is not a moral obligation or duty. It should always come at the victim's pace, and if a victim chooses not to forgive, then that is a decision we must respect. A very interesting tangent that Cherry also draws is with the Africana philosophy, and she talks about the very racist and also gendered experiences with forgiveness in America, and why she did not make her account political. I think it is. Like, you know, they say the personal is the political. In a system that functions on patriarchy, colonialism, neocolonialism in today's day and age, people who are dominated, such as women, people of color, people from the LGBTQ plus community, and differently abled people, they're heavily expected and subtly pressurized to forgive. The burden of being the morally righteous one and being the bigger person is always on the dominated. And see, while forgiveness might be a good practice, it may not always be a moral one. In a lot of circumstances, it may as well be a political practice because the gains and the aims that it seeks to accomplish are very political in nature. See, if all wrongs are expected to be forgiven, if the dominating people who are oppressing others, are always expected to be forgiven by the dominated and the oppressed, then it's going to keep the status quo alive. If women are always expected to forgive men, if people of color are always expected to forgive racists, if differently abled people are always expected to forgive ableists, then it is only strengthening the status quo. It would always be okay then for men to be misogynist, for white people to be racist, and for ableists to chant survival of the fittest. Ugh. So then what must be a victim's response to harm? If not forgiveness, then revenge? See, revenge is underrated. I think it's awesome. Okay, no, I'm kidding. Please, I'm not asking you to pull a Sasuke Armada and start a world war. No, revenge is not the answer. So then, what must be a victim's response if neither revenge or forgiveness is the answer? Well, to save the world from this very confusion, we were graced by a very learned article by Nancy A. Stanley titled "Reconciling with Harm: An Alternative to Forgiveness and Revenge." I'll link it down below. It's a long read, but it's worth it. So Nancy there, she advocates that the best response to a harm is reconciling with the harm. Now, what does this mean? Reconciling with the harm means that a victim recognizes and acknowledges that yes, a harm has been done to them, and we then as a society offer them trust and care. See, when a victim goes through a trauma, they suffer from self-esteem issues, their value has been questioned because they have been oppressed, their mental psyche suffers, and their faith in the community that they're a part of gets shattered. It's then very important for us as a community to empathize more with the sufferer than we empathize with the bully. It's the duty of that said moral community to then offer the victims, the injured, love, understanding, compassion, and care to rectify their pain. See, the problem with forgiveness is whenever a crime occurs, we are always so focused on the resolution of the bully. Like, what does this bully deserve? If they deserve a crime, then yes, give them the said consequences and then it's over. But we always forget the more crucial thing. It is to address the victim's pain and harm. Like, the things that have been done to them, how can we rectify their pain? See, if tomorrow some XYZ person starts pulling laxative, it's not going to make my friend any happier. Yes, she might be happy for a moment that the universe has given laxative the retributive justice and all that, but her pain has still not been addressed. she's still suffering. To support the victims in their journeys, yes, the victim has gone through a harm, and while there's no way of undoing it, there's always a way of working with it and living the best life one possibly can. Until my friend sees there can be women who could be great friends, she's always going to be a victim, withholding her from possible sisterhood in the future. Hence, it's very important that as a community, whenever a crime or injury occurs, our major focus is on how can we compensate the victims, how can we lessen their pain, and how can we restore their faith in a system that has obviously failed them. The resolution should not just be on what the perpetrator deserves, it should be more on what the victim deserves. Somebody bullies laxative, it does not end the painful journey of my friend.